What if the most dangerous person in your life is not the loudest, angriest, or most visibly unstable one? What if the real danger is the person who seems calm, charming, confident, and completely in control? When most people hear the word psychopath, they imagine a movie villain, a killer, a monster, someone obviously abnormal, but the research paints a more disturbing picture. Psychopathy is not just about violence. It is about a pattern: shallow charm, emotional coldness, manipulation, weak remorse, and using other people as tools. And in many cases, the most unsettling part is this: it can wear a mask of normality. So in this video, we are going to answer 4 questions. What is a psychopath according to research? How can you notice the pattern without turning into an amateur diagnostician? How does the disguise work? And how do you protect yourself from the influence of someone high in psychopathic traits? Segment 1: What a psychopath actually is. First, we need to clean up the language. Psychopath is a widely used term, but it is not the formal name of a DSM diagnosis. In clinical settings, the closest official diagnosis is antisocial personality disorder. But researchers and clinicians have long argued that psychopathy is not identical to ASPD. Psychopathy usually puts more weight on affective and interpersonal traits like callousness, superficial charm, deceitfulness, and lack of remorse, not just rule breaking. A modern way to understand psychopathy is the triarchic model. It breaks the construct into 3 parts: boldness, social confidence, low fear, stress immunity; meanness, cruelty, callousness, exploitativeness, low empathy; disinhibition, impulsivity, poor behavioral control, irresponsibility. Not every person high on one of these traits is a psychopath, but when these traits cluster together in a strong and persistent way, the risk profile changes dramatically. Real psychopathy is a pattern of interpersonal style, emotional deficit, and behavioral dysregulation. Segment 2: How common is it really? One reason the topic fascinates people is that psychopathy feels everywhere: in movies, in true crime, in workplace horror stories. But prevalence depends heavily on how you measure it. A meta-analysis estimated psychopathy around 4.5% in the general adult population, but stricter community estimates are much lower, even below 1%. Psychopathic traits exist outside prisons, but full-blown psychopathy is still relatively uncommon. Not every liar or narcissist is a psychopath. Segment 3: The traits that matter most. So what should people actually look for? The strongest cluster across models includes manipulativeness, deceit, shallow affect, weak guilt, low remorse, exploitative behavior, irresponsibility, and violation of others' rights. In practical terms, that often looks like this: they lie easily, they use charm instrumentally, they rarely own harm in a sincere way, they blame, rationalize, or flip the story. They can read people well enough to use them, but not care about the cost. The empathy issue is not simply they cannot understand anyone. In many cases, the bigger deficit is emotional resonance. They may understand what hurts you, but that understanding does not stop them. In some contexts, it may even help them manipulate more efficiently. Segment 4: Can you spot one immediately? This is where internet content gets sloppy. Many creators imply you can spot a psychopath from one facial cue or blink pattern. The research does not support that. Do not trust one sign, trust patterns over time. What matters is consistency across situations. How do they act when denied? How do they act when caught? How do they treat people they do not need? Do they escalate when they lose control? That is where the mask starts slipping. Trust patterns over time. Segment 5: The disguise. Why psychopathy can look impressive. One reason psychopathy is confusing is that some traits can look attractive at first. Low fear can look like charisma, emotional shallowness can look like calmness, grandiosity can look like confidence, dominance can look like leadership. In Jungian language, this is not a diagnosis but a useful image. The social mask, the persona, can become so polished that people stop looking underneath. The problem is what happens behind that image: exploitation, callousness, coercion, deceit, and lack of conscience. Segment 6: Projection, confusion, and why victims doubt themselves. Psychopathy-related manipulation often works by distorting your reality. They deny obvious facts, reframe harm as your overreaction, weaponize your empathy, and make you spend your energy trying to restore fairness. Research shows that the fallout can be severe, including trauma-like symptoms in partners. The moment you are spending all your time explaining basic morality to someone, you may already be inside the trap. That is more practical than trying to read micro-expressions. Segment 7. Psychopathy and Violence. Not every person high in psychopathic traits is a murderer. That stereotype is misleading. But research does show a meaningful association between psychopathy and chronic violence risk, including intimate partner violence. Do not wait for extreme violence before taking a pattern seriously. If someone repeatedly violates boundaries, lies without remorse, enjoys power over others, and treats your fear as useful information, that is already enough reason to act protectively. This is a practical inference from the violence and manipulation literature. Segment 8. Addiction, thrill, and predatory reward loops. Psychopathic patterns are tied to stimulation seeking, impulsivity, and reward-driven behavior. Thrill-seeking, low restraint, and weak concern for consequences can make certain harmful cycles more likely. It explains why they chase exploitation despite consequences. Segment 9. Can they change? The honest answer is sometimes they can improve in specific behaviors, but there is no simple cure, and treatment in adults has historically been difficult. Do not build your safety plan around the fantasy that love or patience will fix the pattern. That may be the most important protective message. Segment 10. How to protect yourself. The goal is not to diagnose them. The goal is to reduce their power over your attention, emotions, choices, and safety. Here are the research consistent protection principles. 1. Track patterns, not promises. Behavior over time matters more than intense words. 2. Slow the pace. Manipulative people benefit from speed. Slowing things down gives reality time to catch up. 3. Verify externally. Do not rely only on how they make you feel. Check stories, timelines, and records. The more someone depends on impression management, the more useful verification becomes. 4. Set boundaries that can be observed. Vague moral appeals are weak. Clear consequences are strong. 5. Document. If the situation involves threats or coercion, keep records. Manipulative patterns thrive in ambiguity. Documentation restores reality. 6. Protect your nervous system. Get outside support. 7. Leave earlier than your optimism wants to. If the pattern is stable, escalating, and callous, more exposure usually helps the manipulator more than it helps you. The strongest defense is not paranormal intuition. It is reality testing, boundaries, documentation, and the willingness to believe behavior over performance. The research-based image of the psychopath is quieter and more disturbing. A person who can charm without bonding, read you without caring, lie without guilt. So the better question is, am I watching a pattern of callous manipulation? And am I responding clearly enough to protect myself? Stay safe. Thank you for watching.